Thanks for being here for our second half. So we're going to have Sandeep Parmar and Michael Zand. Before we begin, we just wanted to mention a few things. We're really disappointed that tonight we are clashing with another really important poetry event taking place at the British Library, which features poets from the Out of Bounds anthology. So although we can't be there, we would like to invoke them.
It's beyond beyond bounds. They're publishing the second run of the a new anthology.
Oh, a new anthology. Yeah. And as well, we would like to mention the Bear Lit Fest, which is happening over the weekend. So if you aren't coming to the symposium, or if you are at a loss for things to do over the weekend, please go to the Bear Lit Fest, which is the first ever writer for Poets of Colour, and it's happening at Betsy Trotwood and the Free Word Centre in Farringdon. It's actually exciting. Okay, we'd also like to say, so the symposium is happening tomorrow. We have a limited capacity, but if you were on the wait list or if you would like to come, it's worth dropping by Bedford Square, and we'll see what we can do. We're going to try and accommodate as many people as possible. We are Rappapuck, or Race and Poetry and Poetics in the UK, is a part of what we hope will be a much longer project. So we're in the process of putting together an AHRC research network proposal, and if anyone would like to get involved, please email us at racepoetrypoetics@gmail.com or any of us individually who are part of the committee. This has to be a much longer project. It's not just this weekend. Finally, I would like to say that Tala is selling pamphlets by means of his brother, Hamja. So if you would like to buy any, please come to Hamja. And if anyone else has pamphlets, please bring them tomorrow to sell, or sell them tonight, or yeah.
One more thing. There's 3 chairs. There's 2 chairs over there, including the one with my coat on, and there's one next to Amy on the second last row if anyone wants a seat.
One of them's yours.
Oh.
Can I just add one quick thing, which is just if you are performing tonight and have expenses, travel expenses that you want to claim, I have some expense forms, so just make sure to see people.
So please welcome Sandeep Parmar to the stage.
So much to the organisers. You've done such a tremendous job. Look at all of us here. And also I'm so glad that you mentioned Bear Lit and the event happening at the British Library, which is incredible. I would never have thought 6 months ago, a year ago, that such a thing would happen. 3 events about race and literature at the same time. I'm going to read from my second book, which is about Helen of Troy. And a very good poet friend of mine, who's Indian, said, when I said I was writing about Helen of Troy, he said, "Why don't you write about our culture and our mythology?" And I was like, I don't want to. It means nothing to me. So, but Helen means a lot to me. So I'm going to read from that. And it's a discontinuous narrative, and Helen is in multiple voices, multiple places, America, elsewhere. It was not me, but a phantom whose oath, a variable star, mouldering in the reliquary, is doubt. I have not unsealed love, its taproot, mouthing blackness, nor seized the fairer woman to purge from her song. This hell house of primogeniture, bookish and pale, quartering what is also its own and only rule, this fire, and the fire that comes from fire. Helen dispirited, camera-bound. Helen fetching the paper from the front lawn in her dressing gown a lot of the time, and knowing when the bell will ring seconds before by the click of its current. Demi-goddess, not woman, not god, disembodied like a bowl turned over and its loaf thumping out. Helen, queen of never mind the time, of you can't run on gin for all the everlasting, and such. Moths, broiling airlessly in a sodium bulb. Smell of it on her front porch. Lights on. home. Waking to a November morning, to pins running across a yardage of wool, or headaches, the circular world disfigured by food. Corn cobs in the sink gleam like teeth up her spine. Hurry up, the bus goes, and its déshabillement goes, loaming on after it. I do not insist that we retain the old names. I would know you, light ever as the seed. Marketing the day-long détente for a sliver of profit does not appear to bother the kingdom of saints. Ascetics, her brothers, Spartans, whose only god is, insert here the death of 11 days. Wash the man by the road, who turns and seeing or not seeing, is soundless, animal, wash him, he is your brother. Enter his encampment of fuel-scarred fabrics, and listen to his black pronouncements, void of exhaust. Scramble up the highway's escarpment, inviolate, good, wash him, or be without brothers. Helen denuded, Helen, a place of pallor where silk shrinks around her throat, exits the office, mindless, purposeless walking, into and out of, through and over, up and around, into and out of, hands waving mindless purpose, metal tint to everything. Stesichouros blinded for watching her across the street, outside and into, the car, horn blaring. U.S. national interests. Matters of vital interest to the United States to include national security, public safety, national economic security, the safe and reliable functioning of critical infrastructure, and the availability of key resources. PPD, Presidential Policy Directive 20, top secret. It has, of course, occurred to me that this conversation is being recorded. But what you say anyway does not belong to me. We are going. Shall we go? Let us go. And if we do go, knowing little of where, who will put the lamp out as we leave? But where is what I started for so long ago, and why is it yet unfound? Whitman. As a wheel on its axis turns, this book, unwitting to itself, around the idea of the Whitman. Helen of Sparta, of Troy, in Egypt, of no known address, of no known nationality, refugee of no known conflict, stateless, without property, disappearing under a veil of treason. I am not the Virgin Mother, lamenting in the hills above Ephesus. I am the invective injuring these dry plains studded with stone pines. I am the lateral commemorate of war, and the steps up to my hiding place suggest I am the birther of sacrifice, received back into the earth, heavenly rock face. If you knew my real name, you would not use it so lightly. An idea is not a woman, but many women, the composite of an idea. Ours is an older civilization, remade, dramatis personae, recast by different troops, rebuilt in the style of Ionian capitals and fluted pilasters put through the ringer of the magisterium. We see the real Helen is the false we, is the eidolon. Thanks.
into this world, this anti-world, yes, into this place like no other, but all around us, yes. And then he said, for my brothers, yes, you, my brothers and sisters, yes, for you yourselves are our letters, brothers, and you are written in our hearts. You are known and read by everyone. And then he sighed and he took a long, deep and said, in this dark, in the dark, in this darkness, or if not exactly the darkness, then close enough to it, there is a story, and if not a story, then a dance of an eagle and a fish, and I, a friend and servant, by the will of God, give to you, God's holy people, in this walled city, a message of grace and peace, in this walled place for our Father, and for my sons and daughters, for my brothers, my sisters, for you, my rays of light, flash and fires flash, and into this anti-world, yes, there is a story of a man in the dark, any man who, in this world, this anti-world, takes a long, deep, and the story is, yes, in 5 acts, and the first act is the sea, and the second act is a deep, guttural, listen, a deep, guttural, and say nothing for one moment, I said a deep. And the third act is words that are doubts that break stones. Can you imagine there are doubts? Yes, that's not difficult to imagine, but there are stones. And the stones are broken and loud enough to help us. And then the fourth act is a cave and is nothing to do with, more importantly, the cave is nothing to do with any art. And the fifth act, which should be the final act, is an intermittent beauty. And the sea, again, yes, this is the story marked by a series of haunting sounds from childhood, from these sounds that he heard and understood and whose meanings he was to forget. These sounds are, yes, these are the sounds that he heard on one particular occasion. They are the sounds that he heard when he witnessed the, yes, very good, you see, there is a line and the line is drawn with the end of a stick on the ground, or whatever passes for the ground at the time. So yes, you see a line is drawn with a stick on the ground, and on the winter afternoon, on a hill, outside another place like this, similar to this, yes. Or you see, on any particular warm night, crowds gathering after a stone, yes. Well, whatever, in the early morning in a field where a cockerel sits, waiting, you see, it was something. And so afterwards, yes, he returned home, yes, to a place thousands of miles from these 1,000 nights, from, listen, say nothing for one just moment, thousands of miles from the sea, in his own language, in the laws of his language, and the soon, afterwards the world closed in around him, yes. The meaning of that night faded, you see, it was deaded, and many wrote and spoke with wit, and some fancied themselves as poets or archaeologists, and a few even tried to venture beyond digging through the layers, mining under the earth, slipping back and avoiding outcomes drowned in the glory of their own fragments until disgust! Until they asked for the women and children to walk to the bottom of the hill, and they asked him to send down his son too, but he refused, you see, because he wanted to be with him. And then they all, deep guttural pain. And drums and shibboleths, incomprehensible, yes, and they found him in the hinterland, searching for some half-meanings in the confusion and disorder of the broken words and sounds, yes. He had a new language here, and this was his only language because it was the only language he could now trust, you see. Very good, because outside his brothers and sisters, outside of the walls, he could hear someone, he didn't know who, breaking stones, and the more he touched the walls around him, the more he realized how ordinary they were, as if they were built to match a pencil sketch a small child might do if he were told to draw walls. And he said to the guards, tell me there are surfaces. Tell me the surfaces are membranes between us. And he said, I hope Because if they are between us, then they make us us, because they make us us. And he learned to write his poetry on the walls in the hope that his brothers and sisters on the outside would see it and take notice, until one day he realized what the noise was. He was hearing drilling of the cave. He was hearing his brothers and sisters on the outside breaking its stones, drilling. Grrr. Children that he knew had been seen in his words and his dreams, and begun to doubt the lies that they'd told him, and the stone walls and the necessity of language. And he could hear his fellow brothers and sisters on the outside, because they were breaking prejudice with chisels and hammers and drills. They were breaking groundwork, even around the walls around him where the world was strong and hard. He could, and they would tremble with the sound of chisels and hammers, and the drill flashed suddenly, and gradually he realized that this cave is nothing to do with any art. And long after, in a sudden flash, suddenly, gradually he realized, the longer he stayed, yes, with its confines, the more he realized that this cave had nothing to do with any art. The playful practice of art, or even the illustrated memoirs of art, but instead it offered a constant drone, a constant repetitive drilling of a contraction of the distraction by which whoever, whatever, madness in the brain, in the ears, and the electric discharge from his fingertips, his stories, not torture as such, but a constant, repetitive, listless, non-existent procrastination of the social dynamic. But in time, over a period, he learned to harness its energy. However ridiculous it sounds, he realized that the walls of his cave had their own resonance, its own frequency. It had the capacity, the capability to take his particular experience and freeze its meaning, to transform it, to make it a pure form throughout the universe. And yes, very good, he became an exhalation of intermittent beauty, you see. That's the nub of it, my brothers and sisters. It's a beauty, yes, but an intermittent beauty of sorts, forged by the pain, by the will of God, you see. You see, the beauty of this story is in 2 parts, not 5, and you see there are some parallels and a few empathies between. But yes, that one leads directly, and the other, yes, it means the power, yes, that you make rational conjunctions and you make compartmentalize the sounds, and yes, their connotations and their minds thus cast out the resonances, the renounces, the riches. The poverty of a single sequence of sounds is, which means you need to think again. We need to think in a different way, yes. Where the energy runs not against any one person or any one thing, because the surge exists, yes, and the fountains, and there will always be sounds we cannot understand or remember. But there are still essential, confusing, beautiful, that still encourage us to start again, because one day they will come for him, yes. They will come to the cave, yes, and he will have gone, and they will know who he is, and he will be with us, and he will be with us again in this world, in this anti-world of